You know how some days just start normal? Like I was just making my toast, thinking about my garden, when my daughter Beth came into the kitchen, looking all, well, a little too happy if you ask me. She said, "Mom, you're going to rot here." Then she actually locked me inside and left for a trip with her MIL. It felt like a bad dream, but what happened last week, that changed everything, in ways she never expected. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'd love to know. I was just Alma, a regular lady nearly 70, who loved her quiet house, her little garden, and her routines. My life wasn't exciting, but it was mine, and I liked it that way. I lived in my house for over 40 years, the one my late husband, Robert, and I bought right after we got married. It held so many memories, good ones, and some sad ones too. Every morning, I woke up with the sun, made my coffee, and sometimes sat on the porch, watching the birds. It was simple, peaceful. My daughter Beth lived about an hour away with her husband, Owen, and their 2 kids. They were busy, always rushing, and sometimes I felt a little like an afterthought. I tried to understand, you know? Modern life, everyone's so stretched thin. But still, a part of me wished for more, for Beth to just sit and talk like we used to. Then came the day, a Tuesday, I think. I remember because I had just watered my small tomato plants, feeling good about how they were growing. Beth called me, all sweet and bubbly, which was a little unusual. "Mom," she said, "Owen and I are going on a trip, a surprise getaway for his mom Joyce. She's been so stressed." I felt a little pang, Joyce, always Joyce. But I pushed it down. "That's lovely, dear," I told her, trying to sound genuinely happy. "You all deserve it." She then went on about how she'd like to pick up some things from my house, a few old decorative pieces she always liked. "No problem at all, honey," I said, thinking nothing of it. "Come on over." She arrived that afternoon, pulling up in her big SUV. Owen was with her, and even her mother-in-law Joyce was in the passenger seat, looking quite pleased. They came in, all smiles. Beth hugged me, a quick, almost fleeting squeeze. "Oh Mom, your house is always so cozy," she said, looking around, but her eyes didn't really seem to see the coziness, they just scanned, like she was assessing something. Owen, a quiet man usually, was even quieter today, just offering a small tight smile. Joyce though was loud and cheerful. "Alma darling, your curtains are just fabulous. So vintage." She didn't mean it as a compliment. I knew that. She always had to make little digs, you know, about my old things. They spent about an hour, mostly Beth and Joyce, going through my living room, my little study. They weren't really picking up decorative pieces. They were picking up things they thought were valuable. An old porcelain doll, a silver tray, a small painting that Robert's aunt had done. Things that held memories for me. I felt a prickle of unease, but I didn't say anything. I just watched, trying to keep a pleasant expression on my face. "Are you sure you want that, dear?" I asked about the doll, which had been a gift from Robert. Beth just waved her hand. "Oh Mom, it'll be safe with me, a lovely display piece for our new living room." It wasn't about safety. It was about possession. As they were getting ready to leave, loading their finds into the SUV, Beth turned to me with a strange glint in her eyes. "Mom, listen," she started, her voice dropping a little. "We're going to be gone for 2 weeks, maybe more. And well, Owen and I were talking, and with your memory issues lately." "My memory issues? I rarely forgot anything. We just thought it would be safer if you stayed inside. You know, for your own good. We don't want you wandering off or anything." My jaw dropped. "What are you talking about, Beth? I don't wander off. I'm perfectly fine." But she just smiled, that same too happy smile. "Oh Mom, don't worry. We've got everything covered. There's plenty of food in the fridge, water, everything you need." She paused, then added, "You're going to rot here. We'll be back before you know it." Owen avoided my eyes, busying himself with the car door. Joyce, from the passenger seat, gave me a smirk, a truly awful, triumphant smirk. "Have a lovely quiet time, Alma," she called out, a little too loud. Before I could even process what was happening, Beth stepped outside, Owen closed the front door, and then I heard the unmistakable click of the deadbolt locking from the outside. I rushed to the door, rattling the handle. It was locked. I peered through the peephole just in time to see Beth, Owen, and Joyce getting into their SUV, laughing. Beth waved, a small patronizing wave, then they drove off, leaving me standing in my own home, a prisoner. The sun was still bright outside, the birds still chirped, but suddenly, my peaceful house felt like a cage. My heart sank into a pit of despair. This couldn't be happening. My own daughter. Locking me in. For 2 weeks. Without proper arrangements, without my consent. Just like that. The humiliation burned hotter than any summer sun. The first few days were a blur of shock and disbelief. I tried to reason with myself, to find an excuse for Beth. Maybe it was a misunderstanding? A really misguided attempt to protect me? But the laughter, the smirk, the utter casualness of it all, it chipped away at any charitable thoughts. My phone was dead, of course. I'd forgotten to charge it the night before, a small insignificant oversight that suddenly felt like a massive error. And my landline? They must have disconnected it or done something because it just made a clicking sound when I picked it up. No dial tone. Panic, a cold, sharp blade, twisted in my gut. I checked the windows. They were old, sturdy. I could probably break one, but then what? I'm nearly 70. Jumping out would likely break a hip. And where would I go? I had no car keys, no purse, nothing. Just the clothes on my back and the 4 walls of my home. My own home. The irony stung. The food Beth mentioned? It was a couple of cans of soup, some bread, and a few apples. Enough for maybe 3-4 days, not 2 weeks. She hadn't even bothered to truly stock up. This wasn't about protection, it was about getting rid of me temporarily, while they did. What? I didn't know, and the not knowing gnawed at me. The rage started to build then, slow and steady, like a fire starting from embers. It wasn't a wild, uncontrollable rage, but a deep simmering heat that settled in my bones. Humiliation, yes, but also a stubborn resolve. I wouldn't rot here. Not me. Not Alma. I thought of Robert, how he'd always told me I was stronger than I knew. You're a force, Alma, he'd say, chuckling. I needed to be that force now. I started exploring, not just my house, but my situation. I rationed the food carefully, making each apple last 2 days, each can of soup into 2 small meals. I collected rainwater in a bucket from a leaky drain pipe outside the kitchen window, just in case. I tried to look for hidden keys, for anything that might have been left behind. Nothing. They had been thorough. My thoughts drifted to my neighbors. Mrs. Gable across the street, always so sweet, would surely notice if she didn't see me puttering in my garden. But she was gone often, visiting her grandkids. And the younger couple next door, they worked long hours. No one would likely check on me for a while. Days blended into one another. I spent hours at the living room window, just watching the street, hoping for a delivery driver, a mailman, anyone. But no one came close enough to hear me if I yelled. My voice was getting weaker anyway from lack of proper food. I began to feel tired, constantly. My muscles ached. But the fire within didn't die. It grew hotter, fueled by every pang of hunger, every memory of Beth's cruel smile. One afternoon, probably a week in, I was sitting on the floor by my old cedar chest in the bedroom. I was just feeling sorry for myself for a moment, letting the tears come, when my hand brushed against something loose underneath. It was a false bottom. Robert and I had put it there years ago, for emergencies. My heart thumped. Inside, tucked away neatly, was a small dusty box. And in that box, a wad of cash, not a huge amount, but significant, and a small leather-bound notebook. My emergency fund, from years of saving little bits here and there, and Robert's detailed notes on our investments, properties, and important documents. I counted the cash. Almost $500. It felt like a fortune. And the notebook, it was like Robert was talking to me from beyond the grave. He'd meticulously listed all our assets, down to the last penny, all our bank accounts, our stocks, even details about the house deed. Most importantly, he'd written down the name and number of his old lawyer, Mr. Henderson, someone I hadn't thought about in years. If you ever need serious help, Alma, Robert had written in his spidery hand, Henderson is the man. Loyal and sharp. A new feeling sparked within me, not just rage, but a surge of hope, of purpose. This wasn't just about getting out anymore, it was about getting even. Not in a mean, spiteful way, but in a way that showed them consequences. Beth and Owen had taken advantage of my age, my trust, my perceived helplessness. They had humiliated me. I needed to show them that Alma, the quiet old lady, was not to be messed with. I wouldn't just escape, I would walk out with my head held high, ready to reclaim my dignity. The plan began to form, a tiny seed of an idea, nurtured by my growing resolve. I needed to get to a phone, I needed Mr. Henderson, and I needed to gather every single piece of information from that notebook. My revenge wouldn't be loud or dramatic, but it would be precise, devastating, and entirely legal. It would be a lesson they'd never forget. I felt a small, grim smile spread across my face. They thought I'd rot here? Oh, they had no idea. My opportunity finally arrived on what felt like day 15. I was weaker, but my mind was sharper than ever, focused purely on my escape and what came after. A delivery truck, a large Amazon Prime van, pulled up next door. The young delivery driver, a polite kid named Liam, struggled with a huge box. "Excuse me, ma'am," he called out to me, seeing me at my window, still locked from the outside. "Could you maybe sign for this for your neighbor? They're not home." A miracle. He didn't know I was locked in. I managed to rattle the window, making it seem like I was struggling with an old catch. "Oh dear," I said, projecting my voice, trying to sound a little frail, "I can't seem to open this window. Could you just come to the front door, please? I think the latch is stuck." Liam, bless his heart, nodded. He came to my front door, box in hand, probably thinking he was helping an old lady with a sticky lock. "Sure thing, ma'am." When he got close, I quickly, with all the strength I could muster, started yelling, "Help. I'm locked in. My daughter locked me in." His eyes went wide, and he immediately tried the door handle. It was, of course, locked tight. "Oh my goodness," he exclaimed. He fumbled for his phone. "I'm calling the police right now, ma'am." And he did. Within minutes, it felt, the sirens were wailing. 2 police officers arrived, and after confirming my story and seeing the external deadbolt, they carefully forced the door open. I was free. The first thing I did was thank Liam profusely. The second was to use an officer's phone to call Mr. Henderson. He sounded surprised, but his voice was kind. "Alma? My goodness, it's been years. Is everything all right?" I explained, in calm, measured tones, what had happened. He listened, silent for a long time, then said, "Alma, what your daughter did, that's unlawful detainment, elder abuse. We need to act quickly." He told me to come to his office the next morning. The police had a social worker come and check on me, and she arranged for a temporary stay at a small clean inn, just down the road, making sure I had food and a comfortable bed for the night. She was wonderful, truly. The next day, I met Mr. Henderson. He was older now, with kind, tired eyes, but just as sharp as Robert had described. I laid out everything, showing him Robert's notebook. He was stunned. "Alma, this is incredible." Robert was meticulous. "With these details, we can trace everything. And you said Beth was taking things from the house? And locked you in? We'll get an emergency order." He worked fast, like a machine. Within a few days, he had traced several of our older, forgotten investment accounts, some property deeds, even a life insurance policy Robert had taken out years ago, which I thought had lapsed. He consolidated funds, pulled strings, and to my shock, presented me with a cashier's check. $50,000, Alma, he said, from accounts you didn't even know existed. And this is just a start. The house itself, of course, is entirely yours. We've also drafted papers. Papers that will protect you, and ensure Beth and Owen face consequences for what they did. I spent the next 2 weeks rebuilding, physically and mentally. I ate proper meals, rested, and talked extensively with Mr. Henderson. He had already started the legal process, getting restraining orders and preparing for a formal complaint about the elder abuse. He told me Beth and Owen would be home soon. He advised me to go back to my house, legally re-enter, and wait. Last week, that's exactly what I did. I walked in quietly, key in hand, the door no longer locked from the outside. The house was empty. They were back, but they hadn't come to my house yet. I sat in my living room, the $50,000 cashier's check tucked safely in my purse, and the legal papers Mr. Henderson had prepared resting on the coffee table. I didn't have to wait long. About an hour later, I heard their SUV pull up. Beth and Owen came marching in, looking tired but self-satisfied. Joyce was with them too, of course. Beth stopped dead when she saw me, sitting there so calmly. "Mom?" she gasped, her face draining of color. Owen looked like he'd seen a ghost. Joyce, though, was the first to recover, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Alma, darling. You're out. Oh, we were so worried." "Were you, Joyce?" I asked, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside. "Because you looked quite pleased when you drove away, leaving me locked inside my own home." Beth stammered, "Mom, it was for your own good. You thought I'd just rot here," I finished for her, the words from the title coming out with a quiet power that even surprised me. "You thought I'd be helpless. You thought I could be pushed aside, ignored, humiliated." I picked up the stack of papers from the table. "You were wrong." I looked at each of them, letting my gaze linger. Last week, I walked in quietly, holding $50,000 cash and legal papers that shocked them both. And now, you're looking at them. I handed Beth the thick envelope. She tore it open, her eyes scanning the official-looking documents. Her jaw dropped further. "What is this? A restraining order? Elder abuse charges? No contact? And a lien on our house?" Owen snatched the papers, reading frantically. His face went white. $50,000, and all your assets are now in an irrevocable trust, Alma? What? Joyce just stood there, speechless for once, her mouth hanging open. The shock on their faces was priceless. It wasn't about the money, or the house anymore, not really. It was about seeing the consequences of their actions, laid bare, undeniable. "Yes," I said, standing up slowly, my voice gaining strength. "That's exactly what it is. You tried to bury me, Beth. You tried to make me disappear. But Alma is still here, and Alma is not a helpless old woman. You wanted to make a statement? So did I." I looked at Beth, my daughter, for a long moment. The pain was still there, a dull ache, but now, it was mixed with a fierce sense of vindication. "You'll be hearing from Mr. Henderson. And I suggest you listen very carefully." I gestured towards the door. "Now, I think it's time you all left. This is my home, and you are no longer welcome." They looked utterly broken, their self-satisfied smiles gone, replaced by fear and disbelief. They turned and left, defeated. The house felt quiet again, but this time, it was a peaceful quiet, full of my own strength. This whole experience, it taught me that even when you feel like you're at your lowest, you have a strength inside you that can surprise everyone, especially yourself. And that sometimes, the quietest revenge is the most powerful. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small or insignificant. What's one moment in your life where you felt truly underestimated, and how did you prove them wrong? I'd love to hear your story in the comments.